meeting to order. I will welcome everybody and ask Supervisor Conover to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ask the clerk to do the roll call.
Mr. Conover?
Here.
Mr. Leggett?
Here.
Mr. Gerard?
Here.
Mr. McDevitt?
Here. Here.
Ms. Bramer? Here. Mr. Brock?
Here.
Mr. McDonald?
Here.
Mrs. Frazier? Here. Mr. Simpson?
Here.
Mr. Vanslow?
Here.
Mr. Dickinson?
Here.
Mr. Merlino?
Here.
Mr. Stroud?
Here.
Ms. Seaver? Mr. Beatty?
Here.
Mr. Montesi?
Here.
Mr. Sokol?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Ms. Wood? Here. Chairman Garrity?
Here. I need a motion to approve the minutes of December 18th, December 28th, and the January 6th meetings of the board. Motion by Supervisor Stroud, second by Supervisor Vanslow. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I have no report this month, but I'll ask for any committee reports. Supervisor Conover.
Yes, I just would bring to your attention, there are a number of resolutions in front of you. They're resolutions that are brought every year at this time that did not specifically come through committee. However, anyone that table one or wishes a roll call on one is certainly able to call for that. And I would also bring to your attention resolution 42 and 37 specifically because they deal with personnel. Resolution 37 is a budget correction, simply a typo correction, and resolution 42 is also a correction to properly identify the position for the person that's going to be coming over here to be handling receivables, the holdover receivables from West. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Leggett, anything to report? Okay. Supervisor Gerard.
Just a couple of things. The courtroom space that we're renovating right now in the old library area is coming along quite nicely. We're thinking in the February, maybe a week or two, and we've been working with the judge, family court judge Paulette, and she's been very good about everything. Everything's working out fine where she's located, and so as far as the timetable, everything looks good as far as proceeding. Anyone that wants to take a tour of where we're at, I think you'd be impressed with the work that our people have done. I think we saved a tremendous amount of money. It's a quality job, and very proud of the staff. Jeff Tennyson's DPW crew and Frank Morehouse, the way they've choreographed this, and it's been difficult on a timetable and working with subcontractors, etc. On the 26th, the facilities meeting, we'll have the team from Clark Patterson that's doing the design for the new courtroom building, and they will bring us up to date and you can ask any questions you want as far as how they're proceeding and where they're at with everything. We've had a litany of core meetings where all the parties and disciplines come in and discuss what their needs are, etc. And they have brought that all together, and they're working on a design stage, and we think it's time that they bring that to the committee and all the other supervisors, and if there's questions, they can ask it at that time. And Cornell Cooperative, the heater has been installed, the propane heater. Mr. Seeley, Dr. Seeley has said they're reaping the harvest of less electric heat expense, and he thanks the board for the cooperation with it, and once again the DPW staff for the installation of it. Thank you.
Yeah, you can tell the difference when you walk in by the county attorney's office. You look down the hallway; it's so much brighter down there where they've been working. So, looks like it's going to be big improvement down there in the court area. Okay, Supervisor McDevitt.
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Bramer.
Nothing.
Supervisor Brock.
I'd like to report that I have nothing to report.
Okay. Supervisor McDonald.
Well, that.
Supervisor Frazier.
Nothing to report.
Supervisor Simpson.
No report.
Supervisor Vanslow.
I echo my colleagues from Florida.
Okay. Supervisor Dickinson.
As the cat in the hat said, I got nothing.
Okay. Supervisor Merlino.
All I got is one quick one. We were the first one to have a meeting this month of tourism. We met on the Tuesday the 12th. It basically was to hold interviews with the people that sent RFPs back on our request for a company to come in and analyze our tourism department. It went really well, and I'll keep you further up on it as we go along. And the only other thing, everybody on their table has the new Warren County travel guide, hot off the press, came in this Monday. So if anybody needs any for their town halls or their own personal use, just go down to tourism and they'll give you what you need. Thank you.
Supervisor Stroud.
No committee report.
Supervisor Beatty.
None, thank you.
Supervisor Montesi.
No report.
Supervisor Sokol.
Proper etiquette. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Health Services did not meet this month, so therefore I have no report. Thank you.
Supervisor Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No report.
Supervisor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, no report.
There we go.
And I did forget, that, we did send out the committee assignments. It's still, we're getting over, I think we're getting better. It is a work in progress. And I'll ask all the supervisors to work with your department heads, to work with Amanda, to try to institute our new meeting schedule in the month of February. I know change is difficult, but please work with Amanda, and she has a good handle on what we're trying to accomplish, and there will be, as I said, a little bumps in the road, but we will work them out, and hopefully by March, we're down to some schedule that works for most of the supervisors. I said most. I do have a couple of anniversaries I'd like to announce. Wayne Farmer, 15 years in the Sheriff's Department, and Paul Dusek, 20 years in as administrator.
Thank you.
That being said, Paul, would you like any report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a brief report on an issue that came up this past week. There were concerns raised regarding the Warren County and the Warren County SPCA contract. We had a contract during 2015 for the sum of $20,000, and some concerns arose regarding whether or not the agency had filed IRS tax returns and filings with New York State Charities. The accountant for the organization sent me an email saying that he had filed them. I had a personal phone conversation with him as well as Jim Fitzgerald, and Jim is here today, that said they filed them. The confusion apparently is over the extension period in which they had to file them, which is why I think they weren't showing up right away down at the Attorney General's office. But I have no reason not to believe these gentlemen when they say they filed them, and they submitted an email actually saying that. The other issue that arose is as to the reporting of all of the various items required by the contract. I'm happy to report that we have received, and I have sent on to the board, so you may look at them yourselves as well, as you know, the various information that we have received from the SPCA. We have received the animals by town. We've received a listing of their services and their vouchers, which far and exceed the amount that they are requesting from the county. The only issue in the end that I could see, and I was going over everything very carefully last night, and you know I sent an email out to everyone saying the only thing I could think of is the verification issue, and I noticed that the contract said certified or verified, and the vouchers do say certified, so that covers that issue. The only other thing I mentioned to Jim this morning is we probably should just get him to certify to the animal counts, because he sent that by email only and not certified. But other than that, I don't see any other issues unless, of course, the board would like any additional information. I feel that he has substantially complied with everything we were looking for. I think we have a good feel that the fact, and this is a little different too, I might add, is that the SPCA, by its nature, is a county-wide organization providing the services that are compatible with what we're looking for as a county. I mean, so we're kind of like in sync. In other words, what we ask them to do is what their organization is all about. In our contract, we say they have to make investigations of complaints concerning cruelty to animals. We also say they have to remove, care, or put up for adoption animals, and you'll see the various reports, obviously, from the doctor's office of who they turned in and how the animals were, the abandoned animals were addressed. Inspecting dude ranches, they've actually indicated they have inspected 2 different dude ranches. They paying expenses for the cost of board, care, and treatment, euthanasia, that's clearly shown in the documentation. Retaining the services of humane officer, well, that's what Jim does. with the organization. And then basically complying with all the public health law of state of New York, requirements. We have no reason to believe that they're not doing that at this point. I did ask the county attorney, Amy Bartlett, to take a look at the contract, and she did advise that she felt that other than, getting this additional information, and she can speak for herself here today too, of course, that she did not see any breaches in the contract that were of concern. So at this point, I don't plan any further action unless the board would request some additional action on this. And I would note that there is Resolution 34 in your packet for a contract, a new contract for 2016. And the new contract would be the same as the old contract, so therefore the information would be the same. And I wanted to mention that to the board in case you had any concerns. But if you do approve that today, we would simply sign the contract, or the chairman would sign it, of course, and the SPCA would sign it. And this year, I had spoken to Amanda, and we'll make sure that everything is verified and presented quarterly. And Jim, I know, will do that. He's even told me he's got some computer software programs that he's working on that'll take care of that. So while there were a number of concerns raised, unless, like I say, the board should have any other concerns, I think I've done everything I can do to address everything. I think Jim has been certainly very, very cooperative, and I would recommend moving ahead and on this matter at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Simpson?
First off, I want to say I'm an animal lover, and I support the SPCA and what Jim is trying to do within the county, and I think it's a benefit to all of our towns. But I do have concerns over the contractual part of this, and this isn't about the SPCA or Jim or anybody else. From my experience, first 2 years on this board, we've had issues with contractual requirements, obligations, and supporting documentation. And here, I clearly read in the contract, the county shall pay to the society a sum not to exceed $20,000 on a quarterly basis upon the society rendering a verified account of the disbursements of the services rendered with verified or certified vouchers, therefore attached for the year 2015. Each account and/or voucher submitted showing the disbursement shall specifically describe the services rendered, costs thereof, identify the town where the animal for which the services were provided originated. I haven't seen any cost for the town. I've seen totals. I haven't seen certified or verified disbursements. I have a disbursement summary that I have questions about, and I just received, last night. And I think it might be the fact that this organization is growing quickly and it's in flux, but I think it's our diligence to make sure this is followed through properly. And this is the time to do it, now, before a new contract goes forward, to correct these issues. So, like I said, I'm a supporter of this partnership or this contract, but I feel that if we're failing on the obligations now, how can we move forward with a contract in 2016 until some of these things are clarified? On the two expense summaries, I have a summary from January 1st to September 30th, and they're entirely different, and some of I've got a lot of questions to this, and I think it's going to take a little time for me to work with Jim to figure it out. I just would like to see this partnership start off on the right foot and not have a problem down the road.
Okay,
So,
Supervisor Montesi?
Well, my support is for Jim Fitzgerald. He's been the animal control officer as long as I've been on the Queensbury Town Board. I've always relied upon Jim to get the job done. This new position that he's holding with the county and SPCA is in its freshman year. There's going to be some steps along the way that missteps maybe are not complete, but listening to Paul and Amy, I think we've done the due diligence that needs to be done. There were some questions raised, and I think Jim and our administrator and attorney have answered those questions. As to how much detail more is needed, well, if that's a question that, perhaps we can get those answers, but I don't see any reason why we should stop the progress and not pass this resolution today, that, if we don't, it's gonna inhibit the progress that we're making with this. And, I have to tell you, SPCA was a pretty poorly operated, operation, before Jim took, the reins.
Somebody else, Supervisor Brown?
Yeah, I agree with Matt. I think that, the way to approach this is if it was your own money. How would you deal with this if you were handing out your own money, or if you were, I mean, we're in charge of the tax money. It's not that we don't trust them, or it's not that we're, that we have any real deep questions. I think we need to start out right. The thing needs to be done correctly right from the start. Otherwise, we run the risk of down the road, we'll have another time when things aren't quite right and people are making arguments that the situation is, well, we had this going on and we had that going on. We need to set standards, not just for SPCA, but for everything, where it's right up to high standards to begin with. And, make sure that that's always the case, not just in this case, but all cases.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Supervisor Simpson?
I just wanna say, my concern is not, my concern is with the job that we're doing. And if we, myself as a supervisor, I'm reading, says verified account of disbursement. To me, that means verified. It doesn't mean, just something that's handed to me that, even the numbers don't add up, correctly on the bottom for a total. So, these aren't our dollars. We represent people who, own these dollars, and I think that if we have a contract, I think we have a good contract. I think we need to follow through. And, it's important to me that, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. If we just say, well, it's in its infancy and, it just grows bigger. Next year, we're going from 20,000 to 80,000. What's gonna happen next year? Is it 200,000? Is it 300,000 as a countywide program? And, every dollar has gotta be accountable.
Understood.
Thank you.
Supervisor Strauss?
Well, first of all, I want to disclose that I am on the board of the Warren County SPCA, and I do want to thank Jim Fitzgerald and the others who have worked very hard to make this a viable organization moving forward. We did need an organization, and we do need an organization like this that will offer humane animal control for our county. Like was mentioned earlier, the previous organization was very insufficient in doing so. This organization has been very active, very aggressive, and spending a lot of their money doing it. So if Matt is, Supervisor Simpson is concerned about the I's dotted and the T's crossed, well, why don't we just make it contingent upon payment of the bill that those I's and T's will be dotted before the check's given?
Isn't that what you're saying though, Matt?
What I'm asking is, I'm not sure when this next payment for this contract, how important it needs to be done today. I think that we need to make sure the performance of the first contract is in compliance before we sign another contract, and then we're in contractual obligation, which I don't think it would take too much time to do that.
But we don't meet again until next month.
Yeah,
When was the first payment due? I don't think we turn anything into the first quarter.
But
a voucher.
Does that leave us with a gap in animal control, for certain animal control aspects for the communities? That's the whole idea, is making sure that the animals are treated humanely, and if we have a case where we do need the SPCA, I know we've used them in our community, they've been there. That would be my only concerns about holding it up. I think procedurally and digging into what needs to be done, I'm confident that staff will do that. As far as making sure that everything is verified before payment going forward, I think we can make sure that happens. That that would be my only concern, Matt. I mean, I think that needs to be done. I do think it's important that we do pass this contract today, so we do have the coverage for the communities in the county, unless everybody feels. Well, you'll get your chance to vote on it.
Can I ask a roll call vote on that? Or do you want me to wait?
We'll get into that. Anything else? Anything else on the, yep, Supervisor?
Just for the public record,
my son is secretary of the humane organization, so,
there's a problem.
we, so, and someone had mentioned that in passing, that, I'm not sure where that argument ends, okay? But anyway, I just wanted for the public record to acknowledge that. And somewhere along the line this week, I saw an email that said that Jim had responded to a situation in Warrensburg where there was a home with 30 cats in it.
It could have been,
Yeah, and so, you know, I don't know how supervisor deals with those issues on a day-to-day basis without
go to
somebody like Jim, taking care of it.
No, and that's what I'm saying. He's certainly filled our, any lack, not that we don't have a good dog control officer, but, you know, he does fill, I mean, we've had horses up there, and so we do need the service. And I understand your concern about documentation, and that's up to us to make sure it happens. Supervisor, comments?
Is Supervisor Simpson asking for more detail in the expenses? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I mean, I have some questions on the January through September. You know, there's a lot more itemization on this. And then on the second expense summary, it's narrowed down to six items. And just doing some calculations there, I mean, there's questions that it's just, you know, like for mileage, for the first, if you take an average of the mileage over January to September, it averages out to $445 a month. If you take the last quarter of this other statement, you divvy that out by 3 months, it comes out to $80 per month. So either we've had a severe decline in services around the county. I just, looking at this, there's some errors. There's some addition, mathematical errors. The total is off by a few, you know, by a little bit. So to me, it just seems like maybe this isn't up to the standard that qualifies to go from 20,000 to 80,000 without furthering what we have in the contract.
Right.
I think that we could be setting ourselves up. We want to see this be a success, not a failure. And I think a good business and a good contract starts out with a good basis.
Well, when I found when I looked at those expense reports, I thought maybe a little more detail myself would be helpful. I mean,
We can certainly work with SPCA to get that. And we can go back and get it too. Anybody else? Did you want to address a concern?
I'd like to, yeah.
Yeah, sure. And just identify yourself for this.
Jim Fitzgerald, President, Warren County SPCA. Thank you, Board, for having me here and listening to me at this point. What I did not forward on to you was 2,300 emails. Those are the phone calls that are date and time stamped that come in. All you saw was numbers on animals. That doesn't represent the calls, the animal concern calls, what it takes to get one animal, maybe 6 trips to that town. And as a supervisor, I'd be kind of happy to see that we brought the numbers down a little bit in that quarter. We were stopped running a pickup truck that was $90 a week in fuel to an Impala that's a flex fuel vehicle. We got these vehicles at low cost, and we had to do some work on them. So we were running other vehicles that were using a lot more fuel. I learned that being an animal control officer full-time for Queensbury, running a F-350 van, of what fuel you expend. So that's what I brought, is the experience of working for a big town to the SPCA, and I know where to cut costs. So I was kind of proud of those numbers, actually, Supervisor Simpson, that we did cut costs. And I'm glad you caught that, because that's something I was going to bring up, that we were able to bring our costs down. So those numbers do not represent exactly what we do and how many times we do respond to towns. I did send Paul an email. We sent out a bid for an operating system. We started that bidding process in September. Computer companies were coming at us with $10,000 price tags. We found a company that we agreed to, and I sent Paul that email on December 15th to implement that. And what that will do will break down every call, nature, everything, as the call comes in off of our answering service into emails. This has been a 3-month process that we've really dug into. This will also be tied into our finances So when the county, we're gonna give a monthly report, not a quarterly report. And it's just easier to do that with this system. So we've been really proactive on what's going on. And when I was handed this is a startup. The county, I think, realized that we've been operating at a loss for the county since, I think, 2000. I showed a figure of almost $240,000 spent by this SPCA on contract money. It was roughly under $100,000 that the county paid. So we've been operating at a massive loss for years. Also, you've had this contract for 25-something years. I've given you more information than you've seen in the past 30 years with this organization. And I think I'm going to really nail it down to the penny when I'm done by this year. And I know your concerns, Matt, and you've been open to me, and we've had a meeting. But I'm also an open book. So give me a call anytime if you want to address it before the meeting. I mean, that's all I ask.
I think what I'm, and I don't want you to misinterpret what I'm saying. What I'm saying, Jim, is we want to see it succeed. And I know that you have a CPA because the CPA responded to Paul's email. So my idea as a supervisor representing the residents of Warren County that this contract is going to grow from 20,000 to 80,000 to whatever it's going to be in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because, this is a huge problem.
Right, absolutely. I agree with you.
So to support this contract, what I'm asking for is I would use that same account, that same CPA. It doesn't take long. If you're keeping books correctly, which we hope you are.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're operating at a loss, these are important things to keep up on, that you can just print these off. I have a business. I've owned my business for 30 years.
I just explained that, though, Supervisor, what we're implementing.
Right.
We took this year to gather information as we explained that this is a startup. And I'll just give you a quick background.
I'm trying to help.
No, but I want to explain to you that my background, is professional as well. I worked for AAG. I worked at 82 Wall Street, and I did a startup called the Private Client Group. I understand there's imperfections, and I appreciate your help, but helping me is not holding back the contract. That's hurting animals. We're not answering the residents. We're not giving them what they want. In 2013, I was in your town for animal cruelty case. Back at that time, I believe the contract amount was $8,000 for the SPCA. There was approximately 13 visits to that house with the state police, myself. We removed 2 dogs. We won. It was he admitted it. A case like that will roughly cost $2,500 to $3,500 in cost. I mean, in that year, that was like 35-40% of the SPCA budget. I mean, that's all. There's so many more costs, and that's what I want to address. I know you're trying to help me. I'm just trying to. This is a work in progress. I've nailed down. I have every animal right here, 2 animals per page. If you'd like to review it, these are the actual numbers. Everything was copied from the animal hospital. We wouldn't be able to operate, and this is what I don't think everybody knows. The animal hospital, animal control officers, full-time, are state audited every year. They cannot operate without this information. So to say that we didn't have the information, that's what kind of bothered me a little bit, because we have every animal record, shot, date of impound. I have the adoption records, what rescue they went to. We were very honest with euthanasia, which a lot of people are afraid to talk about. But that's what we have to address. We're bringing in a lot of sick animals. And we actually, animals that need amputations. We're doing the humane thing, but it costs money. And that's what we're trying to establish here. So that's all I'm trying to say. I do have the numbers. If that's a question of honesty and integrity with our numbers, it's right here, Matt. That's all I'm saying.
No, I never questioned your honesty or integrity.
Well, it's been a rough year.
I just questioned the, as a supervisor, you're in charge of somebody else's dollars.
Right.
These aren't my dollars. If it was my dollars, I'd say, Jim, hey, I know you're going to come up, but there's a certain amount of accountability.
Absolutely.
It's January of 2016, and after the first 2 years I've been on this board, with the focus being on contracts and performance, now it's time to correct it. then to find out we've got a problem 6 months down the road, it's not good for the SPCA, and it's not good for Warren County.
Right, absolutely.
I just want to jump in here. Mr. Fitzgerald, thank you so much for your frankness and openness. I completely support contracting with the SPCA, but I also have the same concerns as Supervisor Simpson, and I'm afraid that you're getting caught up in something that's much bigger than the SPCA contract. And it has to do with what Supervisor Simpson is talking about, the county entering into contracts and then not ensuring that we are following through with that performance from the
Absolutely, I
county
agree.
perspective. So my recommendation is, I have concerns about entering into this new contract for $80,000, but I know I don't want to have no services either, so I'm suggesting that we enter into a shorter contract and perhaps amend the language. If that's not how the SPCA is going to continue forward, maybe he has new software, he can give us different data. Maybe this isn't the wording that should be in the contract as far as what information he's going to provide us to prove to us that those services are worth those dollars.
I'll defer to the county attorney.
I would think that we would be, as far as having the language that you're talking about, I mean, the language is it's pretty general as far as it's basically complying with Warren County voucher procedures, and I think that goes in a lot of the
Well, it has a lot of stuff about providing information on payment of salaries, purchase of food, materials, supplies, payment of traveling. I just don't know if he's concerned about not being able to provide us the information in that format, maybe we come up with different language for how.
Well, I mean, obviously, if he has a copy of the contract, then we can just discuss that as far as that's concerned. I mean, you know, as far as specifics is concerned. I think that's what you're talking about, isn't that correct?
I guess I'm wondering if everybody saw the voucher that was submitted for 9/11 for the three-quarter period, where it does specify in detail animal hospital mileage, food. You know, it identifies everything that the agency has spent through there. I'm just wondering, do you want some further? I guess I'm trying to understand what the board would like in terms of further details, so we make sure we get it. But they have specified all those items. And they have verified it, or the contract says verified or certified, and the voucher on top says certify that, you know, that this amount that we're requesting is for $15,000 and they spent $50,000 is true. Is that correct, Jim? So I think it'll be important for us to know what you want us to get in addition to what's already listed here.
I think for me, you know, the first expense summary, we've got animal hospital mileage, ADP fees, payroll taxes, salaries, insurance, food, phone, ammunition, forms, vehicle, fuel, office, cleaning supplies. In October to December, we have animal hospital, vehicle, fuel, salary, mileage, food. So there's different information on both the expense reports, and so that's
explain that?
confusing to me. Sure.
The reason there's different information is because we started training officers as peace officers. They have to go through the 47-hour range. That's why the ammunition is on there. There's no need for that ammunition anymore. Right. They're trained. That was taken off. As I said, we're trying to cut back on everything we can. We went through a year of just training and establishing. Our building, like I said, we built that. We've trained everybody. There's no taxpayer dollars involved in that at all. We put the infrastructure together. So that's, you know, that's a heck of a savings right there. I mean, Saratoga County spent $5 million on a shelter. Thank you.
Okay, all the comments been heard?
I don't want to run my mouth, if you don't mind.
Supervisor Dixon,
Thank you.
I recognize you.
We had our animal control officer retire over a year ago, and we've had Jim in the SPCA for over a year, and I have not had one single solitary animal call since then. Not one. He does a great job. He gives us all the information we've ever asked him for. He's been very professional, and I have no doubt in what they're going to do this coming year, and I'm not concerned about this contract at all.
Okay, thank you. Now let's move on. Anything else?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
County Attorney.
At this time, I just would like to introduce Brian Reichenbach. He is going to be the new county attorney effective February 1st of 2016.
Right?
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to thank all the members of the board, for their confidence. I'm very excited, to begin this job, and I appreciate your confidence, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity that I can trust. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And then following with the changes theme, there are a couple more changes in the county attorney's office. Terry McGar, who has been the legal assistant there for 15 years, is leaving today. So stop in and say goodbye. And I'm leaving in about a month. And we have a new legal assistant. Her name is Lainey Morgan, and she's doing a great job so far. It's been 2 weeks. Thanks. That's all I have.
Thank you. Yeah, and we are certainly going to miss Terry. And, you know, Shelley went over to the Supreme Court, but Terry, they crank out a lot of work, and I think it's important that everybody here on the board at least stop in and thank them for their service.
Mr. Chairman, will we have an assistant county attorney, and whose appointment is that?
That's, I assume we will going forward.
That would actually be the new county attorney's appointment.
When Brian gets in, we'll have
And
further
yes,
discussion.
we've already discussed that, so he is looking at that right now.
Reading and communications.
Capital District Regional OTB Financial Reports dated October 31 and November 30, 2015. Lake George Park Commission Final Report for the 2015 Lake George Aquatic Invasive Species Prevention Program. Report of criminal and family workloads for November 2015 from the Warren County Probation Department. Minutes from the October 14 and October 19, 2015 meetings of the Warren and Washington Counties Civic Development Corporation. And the November 9th and 16th, 2015 meetings of the Warren and Washington Counties Industrial Development Agency. Warren and Washington County CDC and IDA 2016 final budget. Washington County Board of Supervisors adopted resolutions number 262 and 263 of 2015 relating to the SUNY Adirondack NSTEM and work projects. Capital District Regional OTB November 2015 surcharge check in the amount of $4,308, and letters from June Maxim dated December 23rd, 2015 and January 12th, 2016 regarding Warren County SBCA contracts which were previously forwarded to all members of the board by email.
Okay. At this time, I'll ask for executive session to discuss possible litigation. Motion by Supervisor Gerard. Do we have a second? Supervisor Merlino. All those in favor?
Aye.
I ask that we clear the chamber, except for the attorneys. Okay. Right now, Amanda's handing out a resolution. Well, somebody can modify it then.
See what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
Let's close all these
Peter, you'll modify that one language?
Yes, I will. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah.
Oh, just date it changed.
Okay.
Well, okay. I thought you were 5'10". I didn't think you were 5'10".
Taylor, I know him.
Huh?
Harold Taylor, I know him. This is exactly the same one we got, right?
We have a...
Huh?
We have a written resolution presented by Supervisor McDevitt and Beatty. I need a motion to bring it to the floor. Motion by Supervisor Simpson, second by Supervisor Montesi. What would be the number?
It will be number 45.
It'll be resolution 45.
Is it?
Okay, we also need a motion to bring which ones?
42. Need a motion, resolution 4 through 41 were mailed. The motion is needed to bring, proposed resolutions 42 through 44 to the floor.
Motion by Supervisor Dixon, second by Supervisor Sokol. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Reading of resolutions. Sorry. Oh, you did? So we've read. Okay, we have roll calls. Roll call and discussion on resolution. Supervisor
34, roll call.
34? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, did we need to waive the rules? Motion to waive the rules to bring that?
No, it was read. Supervisor Stroud.
I'd just like to disclose, in addition to me being on the board of the SPCA, I am on the board of the EDC. And, in either case, I remain, financially independent on those boards. I receive no profit from being on those boards. As a matter of fact, they cost me.
A wise move.
But I just wanted to make that,
Any other discussions on resolutions?
Do you want me to modify my?
Yes.
Right, okay. Resolution 45, Amanda, if we can, go to the second paragraph and we can resolve that the Warren County Board of Supervisors hereby authorizes the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, and then what we would eliminate is with the advice and recommendation of the chairman of the Facilities Committee. Just eliminate that portion of it. Okay, thank you.
Board all right with that? Everybody okay with that? Okay.
That's fine.
Yes, Supervisor Thomas.
Is there a dollar amount on this? I mean, it says, funds shall be expended from the contingent fund. That kind of makes me nervous.
We don't expect it to be over,
I thought the number $20,000 on our part would be to throw it in there to make sure we're covered, so.
Okay, so anything over that, it would have to come back to
Yeah,
finance.
yeah,
Yes,
we'll come back.
yeah.
And it's my understanding we're going to apply to NYSERDA, for funding
Sure,
of half
sure.
that.
Certainly.
And I, yeah.
Okay, can we get a motion, Amanda says we need a motion to amend Resolution 45 with those changes. Motion by Ron, do we have a second to amend it? Second by Matt to amend the resolution. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any other discussion on resolutions?
I'd like to comment on Resolution 34, kind of just, reinforcing the notion that we want to take, as a board, a much more thorough approach with any contract of any size that we enter, given last year's, high-profile discussions about contracts. I do believe that we do need the services of the Warren County SPCA, but I feel like it would be reasonable to suggest that Matt has his concerns addressed, and maybe he can meet with Jim, and we could meet again in a week or two, if possible, to then put the contract back up to vote. I just want to put that out there.
So what are you asking?
Special board meeting for 2 weeks, so Matt can have his
All right.
his issues addressed and ironed out.
So are you asking to table the resolution?
Yes.
What do you,
I forgive me, this is, I'm
Yeah.
new to this process, but I guess that would be what I'm trying to do. Yes, table it for 2 weeks.
I guess I'll second so then we can have discussion.
no, once you
No.
make a motion and second it, it's tabled, then there'll be no
Oh.
contract going forward.
That's not contingent on the special board meeting in 2 weeks. I didn't know.
That could be a special board meeting.
No, I wouldn't.
Are you making a motion to table the resolution?
Yes.
Is somebody second it? You're second. There's no discussion. All those, roll call vote? Table?
This is a roll call vote to table,
The
Resolution
SPCA.
34.
That's correct.
You ready? Mr. Conover?
No.
Mr. Leggett? Mr. Gerard?
No.
Mr. McDevitt?
No.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vanslow?
No.
Mr. Dickinson?
No.
Mr. Merlino?
No.
Mr. Stroud?
No.
Mr. Beatty?
No.
Mr. Montesi?
No.
Mr. Sokol?
No.
Mr. Thomas?
No.
Ms. Wood?
No.
Ellen Garrity?
No. Okay, that's failed. Any other discussion on resolutions? Any public comment on, anybody from the public wish to talk about resolutions?
then we'll do the vote.
Mr. Chairman, can we have a roll call vote on, resolution 45?
Sure. 45?
Which is the new one?
Okay. Are you ready, man? Yeah, sure. Yeah.
All right.
Times have changed a little bit.
Okay, Resolution 34, authorizing renewal of agreement with Warren County Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett? Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
No.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
No.
Mr. Vanslo? Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Montesi?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
Resolution 37, amending Resolution 619 of 2015 to correct salary of program analyst position in mental health due to typographical error. Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett? Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vanslo? Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Montesi?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
Resolution 39, authorizing the appropriation of funds from the vehicle reserve to the sheriff's office budget. Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett? Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vanslo?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Montesi?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
Resolution 42, amending table of organization and Warren County salary and compensation plan for 2016. Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett? Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vanslo? Mr. Dickinson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Montesi?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes.
And Resolution 45, authorizing the chairman of the Board of Supervisors to retain engineering assistance to review realized municipal center energy savings and provide advice and counsel to the Warren County Board of Supervisors. Mr. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Leggett? Mr. Gerard?
Yes.
Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Ms. Bramer?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Vanslo?
Yes.
Mr. Dickinson?
No.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Montesi?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes. Collective, all those favor, all the rest, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, carried. Announcements, any announcements from the supervisors? Yes, Mr. Brown.
I don't have an announcement, I just have a quick question on number 45, when it doesn't go through the committee system, isn't that an automatic roll call, or am I, how does that,
No.
no?
If it's written, if you amend the budget, if it's a financial one, yes, it is on. Supervisor Stroud?
I would just like to thank Chairman Garrity for two things that have been very important to this county and Queensbury as well. And that is working with Julie Butler. I want to thank her too in securing solid waste bid, including the electronic waste solution. So I'm currently working with a company named Evolution, and we're there. But we wouldn't be there without the help of the county. So I want to thank the county on that matter. And I have a second item too, is that I have asked the county that this shouldn't be just a town of Queensbury burden. It should be a county effort to provide household hazardous waste disposal event. And thanks to the county organizing that, that event will be sometime this spring. So I just want to thank for those two efforts. I think the community at large will benefit.
Now, yes, Supervisor Dixon.
I'd like to thank my desk mate here, Mr. Merlino, for his efforts with the tourism department. Thank the tourism department as well for not only reviewing where we are, but reaching out to the community at large and getting some of the other business people involved in this process, and to Julie for her expertise in this RFP and pulling the whole thing together. It's a tremendous effort, and he's done a great job, and I appreciate it.
Okay. I know there are people who want to speak to the board. Anybody else? Any other supervisors? Before we go, privilege of floor, please. Anybody wish to address the board? Please step up, state your name for the mic, for the record.
Thank you, Chairman. My name's Kurt Austin. I'm from Chestertown. Some of you recall that I was here in September. The subject of my presentation was the first wilderness corridor. And as you know, the centerpiece of that excellent promotional device, the first wilderness corridor, is the railroad. It's meant to benefit all the towns up and down the corridor, all of Chestertown, Warrensburg, Stony Creek, not just North Creek. But I'm not sure many people think it's had the impact that was hoped for. And so I'm suggesting that instead of a railroad as the centerpiece, you make it a bike trail. And of course, I'm not the first one to think that or suggest that. It's been a long-standing discussion. But the time to act may be soon, so here I am to try to push on that. Now, I've passed out some flyers that, the same as September, show the dramatic difference between the usage of a railroad, the amount of customers you have for a railroad versus the number of users you have for a trail. And there's really there's no question about what provides a bigger tourism buck. In fact, I was talking to Mike Consuelo this morning, and he mentioned that they get a lot of calls about where to bike, whether they should bring their bikes, that sort of thing. So I asked him, how many calls do you get about the railroad? And he said, well, none. But that's just an example. A more concrete example maybe, or something to put in your heads, is pretend you're the new owner of the 1,000 Acres Ranch. Now she's just bought an outfit with not a great financial track record. She bought it out of bankruptcy. To be successful, something's got to be different about it going forward. Now, the railroad goes right through her property, right through the campground. It doesn't normally stop. So I can't imagine it's going to do her a lot of good. But imagine if that was a bike trail in the summer, or a snowmobile trail in the winter. I think there's room for horses on that portion of the trail. That's got to bring in at least a few hundred extra guests per year. I think perhaps more like thousands. But she would certainly be far better off with a trail. And that's sort of true for a lot of businesses up and down that trail, and good for neighboring towns too. People on bicycles are more mobile. They can come and go when they want. They can actually ride into Warrensburg if they want and have lunch there. A lot of things you can do on a bicycle you can't do on a train. So the summary is that on a tourism basis, a trail, I think, it's no contest. It's much better than a railroad. But it's also good for us locals. It provides recreation for us locals. It's good for our pursuing healthy lifestyles, which most of us need. I wouldn't be standing here otherwise. That's no exaggeration. It's just a really good thing, and it's the way to go. And by the way, the trail we're talking about, it's not just some ordinary trail that a lot of communities have. It'd be a very special trail. starting in Saratoga and ending up in the wilderness of the Adirondacks. There are no other trails like that in the east. It would be a nationally known trail, a really big deal. One other attractive thing to keep in mind, I think, about the trail option is if you decide to go that way, the process boils down to calling a salvage company. There's a few railroad salvage companies in the country. You get quotes from them, not for what you pay, but what they'll pay you. And the result, 6 months later or so, is you've got a usable trail, flat surface. You can ride a mountain bike on, walk on, other things, snowmobiles, and $2 or $3 million in the bank, which I would hope would be put towards the trail and not tax reductions, but that would be up to you. Now, here's the peculiar thing, though. After I gave this talk last September, and after talking to many of you and having some of you come up to me, I realized that most of you support the idea. Most of you are in favor of a trail. Yet, I went to the Public Works Committee and made I thought, a very reasonable proposal, but it went nowhere. And a few days later, I read in the paper that it would go nowhere. And I thought that was kind of peculiar. It's what you folks actually want, but nothing was going to happen. Now, the reasonable proposal, by the way, was extend the contract with the railroad no more than 1 year, and do a study in the meantime. And so after a year, you would be in a very good position to make a sound judgment, not just based on what I'm telling you. But it went nowhere, and it's a funny thing. It means I don't get what I want. The citizens of Warren County don't get what they want. The businesses in the First Wilderness Corridor don't get what they want. Snowmobilers don't get what they want. Not only, and you don't get what you want. So that's struck me as very peculiar. And maybe it's some of the signs that I've been hearing about and seeing about maybe this board has a structure that doesn't produce the right results. So it may be tied in with your new attempts at trying to improve the process. I'm not sure what's involved. I'm pretty naive when it comes to politics. But I think maybe it may have something to do with your need to restructure and reconsider how you come up with decisions, revisit old decisions, manage contracts. I don't really know, but perhaps this would be a good test case. We have a situation where most of you would prefer a trail, as well as the citizens of Warren County. Make this a test case. See what you can do to produce the result that we all actually want. And I have no idea what that is, but make this a test case.
Okay, thank you. Gene?
I'm not here to debate with you, but I just want to bring up a couple of statistics that probably don't know. Number one, we don't own the whole trail. Warren County only owns from Warren County border to North Creek. Above that, the railroad owns that land and the tracks. So if we ever try to do something like that, we'd have to buy that from them.
The northern end.
Northern. And the southern end is owned by Corinth. That's number one. Number two, check out the DEC now. The railing and the metal, the steel is very valuable, just what you said. But every tie that's on that track, that's underneath those things, have to be purchased and disposed of like it was hazardous material. So for every one of those, you're paying. So I just want you to know there's a lot more than just as easy to say that we. Wait a minute, let me listen to you.
No, I'm going to agree with you.
And when you brought it up, we took it under advisement, but we're still working with the railroad for a contract, so we can't really make a decision, until that is made. So it's not, you know, and I'm not, believe me, I'm not here debating, I wasn't even gonna say anything, but, this is the thing where you just made a comment, well, this board is known not to follow through or like things. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. And this is what happens when information comes forward at the speaker about, oh, there's $3 million worth of steel and this. So I just want to let you know that it's not as easy as you make it, and we're not here to make it harder for you to, let's get a trail, but there are certain steps that have to be worked out.
Well, I'll just briefly reply. The 2 or the 3 million, I think, is net of the cost of the salvage company takes care of the cost. But that's a trivial.
No, that's something different. You know, the tie things has been in the last 6 months. So a lot of people.
All right, but the real answer is that you're right. There are questions to get the answers of. You should not believe just a piece of paper I put in front of you may not be accurate. But it may be accurate. And what's needed is a study. What I'm calling for is a discussion. So I'm great there. It's great that I'm having a discussion with you. What we need is a discussion. That's what I'm calling for. The absence of a discussion, I think, tells me something is wrong. All I want is a discussion.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else wish to address the board? Mike, you want to address the board, please?
Good morning, everyone. Michael Consulo, Lake George Regional Chamber of Commerce and Convention and Visitors Bureau. I didn't know I was going to be singled out this morning, but I was asked a point-blank question. I gave a point-blank answer. Yes, we get more calls for biking than we do trains. But we also recognize that the Saratoga-North Creek Railroad is a feature of our county and our region, and we promote it as best as we can. We promote everything that we can do, as well as the folks at Warren County Tourism Department. So I just wanted to make that clarification that biking is important. The railroad is here, so we promote it as best as we can. Until something changes, we'll keep on doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address the board today? Any other announcements? I have one other announcement. On the 29th of January, they'll be recognizing Fred Monroe at a dinner at the Point of Pines in Brant Lake. Mr. Simpson's nice community. So reservations are due on the 18th, I believe, Monday. So anybody would like to go up to Point of Pines in beautiful Brant Lake and honor former board member Fred Monroe, that's going on. So I think it's called the Warren Chamber of Commerce. I don't know the number offhand, but do you have that?
I don't have the number. Craig might.
Craig?
I know it's at Jimbo's.
Oh, it's Jimbo's.
It's going to be at Jimbo's on Brant Lake.
But that's I call it Point of Pines. Same place?
Point of Pines.
Point of Pines. Jimbo's. Okay, it's the 29th. Any other announcements or any other discussions? Motion to adjourn, Edna? Second by Ron. Thank you.
I wasn't sure why you were over.